It was June 1971, and I was coming to the end of my time in Bolivia, nearly 3 years. The Peace Corps had been kicked out of the country, but my landlord had managed to get me and my wife Jimena clearly illegal entrance stamps on brand new passports. We could stay, but I needed a job. My great friend Alberto Villalpando, director of music in the ministry, went to the minister and threatened to resign if the National Symphony did not hire me. That threat proved unsuccessful. The only two choices were to wait an undetermined amount of time for the Peace Corps storm to be forgotten and try again to get hired by the orchestra, or to leave. Several members of the National Symphony were following our director Jerry Brown to Costa Rica and a chance to reinvent their orchestra. With deep sadness and a longing to stay in Bolivia, I decided to throw in with them. I was expected in Costa Rica in September, and there was a long list of things I still wanted to do. Eric Stern and Robbie Murfeld came down to climb, and we got to the summit pyramid on Condoriri and turned back because of darkness. But then we did a new route on Huayna Potosi, my third, and climbed Illimani. Eric and I had our eyes on the west face of Illampu, and Robbie was heading home. We decided to take a short trip to Machu Picchu before he left. Jimena wanted to come along, but with some trepidation, because it was to be the first time she left our young son, Richie, aged 13 months. But with the doctor, our landlord, and his two maids, Luisa and Elena, he would be well taken care of by people he knew well who loved him. And so the four of us set off by train, then boat, then train again for Machu Picchu. Up until very recently, there was no restriction on camping in the ruins. My friends, other Peace Corps volunteers, came back with incredible stories of the drama of sleeping in the sacred ruins of that old Inca city. We had just missed it. The word was that the next best thing was to get off the train before the Aguascalientes station, Machu Picchu, and hike up a steep trail to Huayna. You could camp in the ruins there and then hike over on a high trail to Machu Picchu during the day.
Del camino. En la tarde del recuerdo se oye el canto guajojó. Carretero del camino. El sol va muriendo en la montaña, triste para ti. Llega con su canto el piraí, vibra en el silencio cual metal. El río llora con tu soledad, el río con su acento te hablará. Con la luna que parece tuya, pinta tu camino con su luz. Selva, infierno verde, eres prisionero del amor. Selva, infierno verde, eres prisionero del amor. con su canto el piraí, vidre en el silencio cual metal. El río llora con tu soledad, el río con su acento te hablará. Con la luna que parece tuya, pinta tu camino con su luz. Selva, infierno verde, eres prisionero del amor. Selva, infierno verde, eres prisionero del amor.
After seeing the entire site before any other people arrived, we decided it was time to climb Huayna Picchu. Definitely harder than we thought, with narrow, slippery stone stairs. At the top, we came upon an athletic-looking young American man lecturing a small group of American students about the Incas. Something went bang in my head, and I suddenly knew who he was. Go back a few years, to my first months at Juilliard. I asked out Betsy Fugas, the sister of Freddie Fugas, my Oberlin College roommate. She was attending Sarah Lawrence College and came into New York for the date. I had just started rock climbing and was fanatical about it, so it must have come up in the conversation. So she mentioned that her roommate at Sarah Lawrence, Leonore, like the opera by Beethoven, had spent the summer in Colorado Springs and had met and dated a climber who took her to rock climb at the Garden of the Gods. Cool. She also mentioned that he was an archaeologist who specialized in the Neo-Inca state, which was interesting because normally archaeologists were not interested in newer epochs like that, especially in Peru, where near the coast there had been civilizations tens of thousands of years older. Nothing happened between me and Betsy, but that conversation stuck with me. And here he was. I went for the jugular during a pause in the lecture, which in the small space at the top we couldn't help hearing. I asked innocently, "Do you know someone named Leonore?" He freaked. Yes! And everyone was asking me questions. After some chaos and explanations, we all calmed down. It was one of the most amazing coincidences of my life. It turned out that after Machu Picchu, they were on their way to find Vitcos, the political capital of the Neo-Incan state. It was considered either non-existent or lost by everyone in the world except Gary Ziegler, the professor/climber we had just met. After the lesson, we talked about climbing, etc., and on the basis of nothing more than Leonore, I asked if we could join them. He consulted with the students in the group who were paying for the course, and they said okay. I think we somehow got word to the doctor that we would be late coming home. Maybe a phone in the train station. The adventure began. We met up the next day at the end of the line train station, Aguas Calientes, below Machu Picchu, and went by truck down to the junction of the Vilcabamba and the Urubamba rivers, and spent the night in a tiny village called Santa Maria. The next morning at the fork, we turned up the next valley toward Pucura, taking another truck as far as it would go. Then we started walking.
Eres la luz de mi pasión, eres la flor del corazón. Ven hacia mí para soñar
con las caricias y secretos del amor.
Nunca creí en el sufrir y ni pensé en el amor. Anduve así sin comprender,
pero tus ojos me enseñaron a querer. Tus lindos ojos, cuando me miran, llegan al fondo del corazón.
Tus lindos ojos tienen la culpa y sin embargo los quiero yo. Nunca creí en el sufrir y ni pensé en el amor. Anduve así sin comprender,
pero tus ojos me enseñaron a querer. Tus lindos ojos, cuando me miran, llegan al fondo del corazón.
Tus lindos ojos tienen la culpa y sin embargo los quiero yo.
That afternoon, we came to a nice spot to camp by the river. We were going much faster than the other group, and so we went in swimming while we waited. When the rest arrived, they immediately shed all their clothing and jumped in naked. Whoa! Things had changed in the States while I was gone. The 70s were not the 60s. The next day, we followed the wide track through the valley until it turned into a trail and headed steeply uphill towards Pucura. After a while, we emerged into a different ecological zone. Gone was the scrub, banana, and coffee land. All of a sudden, we stepped into green meadows and a wide open, fertile valley. Inca country. We arrived in Pucura in the afternoon. The rest of them not until the next day. We found to our delight, after all the hiking uphill in the hot sun, that the army outpost garrison had beer, which we could buy except that they were out. But expecting the mules with more any time now. Oh well. Immediately we joined in a pickup football game with the soldiers and the boys from town. You're sure there's no beer? Then, since it wasn't dark yet, we got one of them to take us up to what they called Rosas Pata. Sí, son ruinas. Was this Vitcos? We didn't know. While we were away, the beer arrived. Uh-oh! Because we were so hot and thirsty and thinking it might run out, we dug in. It got later, then much later. And instead of food, our friends, the lonely soldiers who were stuck here at the end of the road where nothing ever happened, brought out the pisco bottles. Luckily, there is a custom where you drip a drop or two on the floor for Pachamama, the Earth Mother. That helped some, but it was mostly too late. The watchword was, just put it to your lips, and then try to discreetly pour out the whole glass. That worked sometimes. I don't know if they ran out of pisco or not, but finally it was over. They will never forget us. We rolled out our bags in their big gathering room. The next morning was a little slow, but we managed. Gary and the others arrived early. They had camped just below the village. Okay, here's some background on how Vitcos got lost. Back in the 16th century, after the Spanish invasion, various Franciscan friars visited it and wrote about it. The Incan ruler was in residence here, while they alternatingly waged war on and signed treaties with the Spaniards in Cusco. This is irrefutable. The various priests and friars described the buildings and the site. What happened was, during the following centuries, the professional historians decided that Vitcos and Machu Picchu were lost somewhere down in the jungle, and no one cared very much where, until 1911, when Hiram Bingham of Yale mounted an expedition to find Machu Picchu, Vitcos, and Nuestra España, another related site close by. He published an account of his expedition and his success in finding all three, which became a laughingstock. Nobody believed a word of it, and nobody bothered to find out if it was true. So, fast forward to Gary Ziegler, who became interested in the Neo-Inca state and found Bingham's book fully credible. Apparently, the lack of belief was because of Bingham's reputation as a romantic and a storyteller. So here we were, the first people since Bingham to come and see Rosaspata, also known as Vilcapampa, see the map, who actually knew what it was, Vitcos. We hoped. It was quite a gathering that morning, with members of the garrison as well as some villagers. We talked to one elderly man who remembered clearly when Hiram Bingham and his group had come. He described it as many huge tents and lots of mules. We all made the short trek up to the site. Then came the magic. We sat looking out over the prow of this elevated meadow, imagining how easy it would be to defend, and sat in the ruins of the palace with 15 doors on each side, as Gary read account after account of priests from the 1500s describing this very spot. In the meantime, says Ocampo, the legitimate Inca, Tupac Amaru, was there in the fortress of Vitcos, which is on a very high mountain, whence the view commanded a great part of the province of Vilcapampa. Here there was an extensive level space with very sumptuous and majestic buildings, erected with great skill and art, all the lintels of the doors, as well as the principal as the ordinary ones, being of marble elaborately carved. And here's Bingham's account. The long palace, of which we made a plan with careful measurements, is 245 feet long and 43 feet wide. There are 15 doors in front and 15 doors behind, but none in the ends. There are no windows. It is divided by halls into 3 divisions. The front entrance to each hall is a particularly well-made door containing a re-entrant angle. These 3 principal doors and the other lesser doors are all of white granite, rather carefully squared and finished. The lintels of the doors are solid blocks of white granite, from 6 to 8 feet in length. Later, we made the short walk further away from the prow of the escarpment to the giant boulder. Gary read, Father Calancha said in his chronicle, joined to Vitcos is a village which is called Chitiquipalpa, and a house of the sun, and in it a white stone on top of a spring of water, where the devil appears in visible form, and was adored by these idolaters, this being the principal mochadero of these mountains. The locality where we found the monolith is called Nuestra España, or Yuracrumi, and is also known as Chuquipalta. Gary pointed out that the protrusions on the flat side as probably some sort of astronomical calendar, possibly by the shadows they cast. He noted that to carve away the entire side of the boulder, leaving those spots, would have been a monumental task. The only thing we know of that cuts white granite is diamonds, which are not found here. More mystery. Yes, That's how we found Vitcos, the political capital of the Neo-Inca state. Machu Picchu, the religious capital, had already been found. Of course, the villagers and the soldiers of the garrison knew it was there, and maybe other people in the country had heard that there were some ruins at Rosas Pata, somewhere out there at the end of a 2-day walk from civilization, at the end of the trail. But we were the first to establish that, yes, this was Vitcos, the Vitcos of legend, and of the writings of the friars of the 17th and 16th century. Poor Hiram failed where we succeeded. I hope Gary got the credit for it.
De terciopelo negro guanburitaí traigo cortinas. De terciopelo negro guanburitaí traigo cortinas. Para enlutar mi pecho guanburitaí, si tú me olvidas. Para enlutar mi pecho guanburitaí, si tú me olvidas. Si me olvidaras, dulce Azucena. Si me olvidaras, dulce Azucena. Si la azucena es blanca, guanburitaí, tú eres morena. Si la azucena es blanca, guanburitaí, tú eres morena. A la samaritana guanburitaí te pareciste. A la samaritana guanburitaí te pareciste. He pedido un vaso de agua, guanburitaí, no me lo diste. He pedido un vaso de agua, guanburitaí, no me lo diste.